It is the start of your book tour this week, and I know it's a project you've been working on for a very long time, but once again, you find yourself mired down in this credibility cloud over Whitewater and travel office firings. A new CNN poll shows that most Americans don't think you're telling the truth. Now, you have said recently that you're considering voluntary testimony before Congress. You haven't been specific about when. Could you let us know when you might do that, how you might make that decision, and isn't it clear at this point that that would in fact be helpful?
Oh, Claire, you know, I have said and will continue to say that I will cooperate in any way possible to resolve this matter. And, you know, I'm not surprised by poll figures like that, given all the accusations and allegations that are swirling around these past days. But I'm going to do what I'm doing here. I'm going to talk with people. I'm going to answer questions. There is no basis of substance to these allegations. And I guess ultimately I believe that, you know, I have faith in my husband and in myself, but particularly in the American public. And as people hear answers and as they sort out fact from fantasy, I think that they will see these as largely motivated by partisan charges coming about in this particular political season. So I will just keep doing what I am doing here. And ultimately, I hope we'll be able to get back to talking about, you know, questions like what's best for our children and trying to answer concerns that I have about why 135,000 kids bring guns to school, or so many of our teenagers get pregnant, or so many of our babies are abused. When the headlines fade, I think those questions will still be there for us.
But what is your thinking at this point about testifying before Congress? Is that an active consideration for you? Or?
No, it's my same thinking that I've had for the last several weeks, is that I'm just going to do the very best I can to fulfill all of my obligations. And I'm going to continue to do the best I can to cooperate. And that is all that I know to say about it right now.
I think what's hard for a lot of people to believe, looking at those poll numbers, is that such a savvy, smart woman as yourself wouldn't, for example, have known the ins and outs of a land deal like Whitewater or that sort of investment.
But Claire, you know, in 1978 or 9, maybe it was 77, when we got into that land deal, there was nothing wrong with it. There's never been anything proven to be wrong about it. You see, the very question you ask assumes that there was something wrong about what we did. And we said, when the questions were first raised in 1992, we didn't do anything wrong. We were passive investors. We lost money. And the questions kept coming. And so the RTC hired a national law firm who had access to far more documents than we ever could find on our own, because they had subpoena power. And they spent $4 million. And they concluded that what we said 4 years ago was truthful. And they said the same thing about allegations concerning whether or not we had somehow taken money from Madison Savings and Loan, or that had been channeled to my husband's political campaign. We said that's not true, and people said, prove it. How do you prove a negative, you know? It is not something we had in our power to disprove. People can walk up to you these days and say anything about you, apparently, when you're in public life. And if you say that's not true, they say, prove it. Well, that same investigation proved that what we said 4 years ago was true. Now, I am not at all surprised people are confused, because has there been a press conference about the RTC report's findings saying that we lost money, we were passive investors, we did not take money from Madison? So the responses, when all the fact and fancy of these allegations are finally sorted out, never get as much attention as the original charges, which are made over and over and over again.
Well, let me ask you something specifically on the travel office firings that's happening in Washington today. Republicans have released a new document, a chronology of events that was put together by the former White House staff member David Watkins, where he again contends that you asked that those people be fired. And the document, in fact, quotes you as saying, get our people in there. Why do you think these accounts are so different?
Well, I can only say what I know and what I remember that I did. I cannot speak for anybody else. And I know that I expressed concern when I heard reports about financial mismanagement. I think it would be very odd if someone heard reports and said, oh, well, fine, you know. And instead, I said, I'm concerned about that. And indeed, the charges about financial mismanagement were looked into, and a big accounting firm, independent of the White House, concluded there were financial irregularities, and changes were made. That's all that I can say. I did not have a hand in making the decisions. That was not my responsibility. That was others. But I absolutely will say, as I have said for years, I did express concern.
Is part of your concern about appearing before Congress a sense that you might not get a fair hearing there in this atmosphere?
Oh, I don't know. I think that the American public will have to judge the fairness or the unfairness of these proceedings. But I'm just going to continue to cooperate. My task, as it has been from the very beginning, is to do the best I can to try to get the facts out. And sometimes it takes a lot longer than I wish, and particularly when people are filling the air with new allegations and accusations every week. It takes a while to sort them out. I sometimes don't know what I've been accused of from day to day. So, I mean, it's not surprising to me that people would take a look at the flurry of accusations and say, oh my gosh, there must be something wrong. I imagine if I were sitting on the other side of the television screen, I'd say, oh my goodness, there must be something wrong. So all I can do is to ask people to take a deep breath, remember that what we said about Whitewater in the beginning has been proven true. There is no substance to these allegations. Eventually, people will understand that. Now, I assume that there will be those who will try to keep them alive for their own reasons, but I think the American public is, you know, fair and smart, and they'll be able to make their own judgments.
Let me ask you something that I know you'd like to talk about, and that's your book on raising children, which I just finished last night. There are a lot of useful lessons in there. Your experience is plain in all of the pages. How would you, as a practiced politician and policymaker, take some of those valuable lessons about how to value our children and translate them into the real world, make them a real world possibility?
Well, I wouldn't start from that point. I'd start more from the point of view as a, you know, a mother and a citizen, because I think most of the changes we need to do for our children start there. I really believe that if every mother and father started talking to their children when those children were babies and reading to those children and giving them the attention and love.
2-foot jump, low southeasterly swell.